So, Mack Skip happens in the first 15 minutes of the game or so on a good run. It's generally considered the first kind of difficult tech that you do in the game. It looks really easy to do, all the speedrunners make it look super easy, but it's actually quite precise to get the timing for it, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong early on that are kind of like hard to diagnose if you're not really that familiar with like the ins and outs of the frame data and stuff. So I'm just going to show you a couple things that can go wrong. So this is what a Mack Skip should look like. See, nothing to it, right? That's what a successful Mack Skip would look like. You just do the one jump off the ground onto the upper level, jump off the upper level onto the shyster's head, and then jump off the shyster's head over the invisible wall into the corner where you're talking to Chancellor. Looks super easy to do. It's not really the hardest thing in the game, I guess, but it can be kind of hard to like get down consistently. Everything that I just did there is like the frame windows for it can be kind of finicky. 'Cause you have things like, first of all, it's 3 jumps as you saw, as I just explained. Each one of those jumps has things that can go very, very wrong during them. So I'll kind of show you like some of the biggest mistakes that I see and kind of how to rectify them. So I'm just going to switch to emulator for a sec. This first jump that you want to do here. If you go to smrpgspeedruns.com, there is a picture that very clearly describes how the movement of that first jump is supposed to look, which I've got right here in OBS. So, what this is talking about is these little red lines beside Mario there indicate that you want to run straight right and jump after his body kind of passes that little corner there. And when I say his body passes that corner, I mean like the center of Mario has to pass that corner. So what that looks like in emulator is, if you look at my input display, I'm just going to hold right. Oh, sorry, I forgot to switch off the... Okay, there, I'm in the emulator. So I'm just going to hold right. Just like that. But you see, as I'm pressing right, I'm moving. You can see, there's my arrow. I'm going to put it straight over horizontally from the top of Mario's hat. But, like, as I'm moving downward, you see, sorry, as I'm moving to the, I'm only pressing right, but my hat is getting like further and further down away from the pointer. This because the shape of this wall is just pushing me cardinal downward when I run straight right into it, which is exactly what's supposed to happen during Mack Skip. A lot of times I see new runners try to overcorrect for this wall push when the wall push exactly what's supposed to happen. So you're supposed to jump like after you pass this corner here, and once your walking pattern starts becoming completely horizontal. So like this. It's like first you're moving down a little bit, but then you're only moving horizontal. When you're horizontal, that's when you want to jump onto the upper level. Like right there. That's a really good position to be in for Mack Skip. This is when you want to do your second jump. What I see a lot of people do is try to overcorrect that pushing and they jump like here, which just triggers a cutscene. Or jumping like there, but not quite as running, and it still triggers a cutscene. So that's a big mistake I see. If that's happening, that means you're jumping way too early, and just slow down a little bit and jump exactly when the picture tells you to. After Mario is past that corner, the center of his body has to pass that corner. Like, it's okay if you're like a couple frames too early, but if you want to be totally safe, just do it in that corner. Or when you pass that corner. But don't wait too long, otherwise, this is gonna happen. You go too far. See how I'm moving straight horizontal? See, like, my pointer there is like, right, I'll put it horizontal across where Mario's hat should be. If you start moving too much, then Mario gets like further up. So he should be like right here, right? But then the wall pushes him up, and see, now he's too high up. So if I waited too long to do my horizontal jump and I start getting pushed up by this wall, like even a little bit there, and I jump up, nope, that's going to trigger the cutscene. So you have to jump at this point here when you're moving horizontally, and this is you're moving horizontally when you're only pressing right on the D-pad. So anytime when right is only making you go cardinal right and not down right, not up right, just cardinal right. You just jump and then you're in a good place to do a Mack Skip. So that's kind of like probably the most important part about the first jump is that you have to be careful about when you're jumping. Don't do it too early. It's easier to do it too early than it is to do it too late. If you're doing it, I've never seen someone really do it too late, but like it's possible it happens, so I just kind of described it. I always see people doing it too early. It's a big problem I see. So the next thing that can kind of screw you up in Mack Skip is the second jump. Second jump is probably the hardest one because there's kind of 3 major things that can go wrong with Mack Skip. And to demonstrate that, I'm going to slow down the emulator a bit just to show you like how it should look versus what it can look like when things go wrong. So I'm going to set it down to 6%. If you jump and hold Y during Mack Skip and right, and you land on top of them, and you find yourself standing still at the end of it, that means you did it right. Congratulations, you did a great job. But so if that doesn't happen, there's normally a few reasons for it. Watch my inputs very carefully. So I'm gonna hold Y and right. Then I'm gonna jump. I'm not gonna release Y, but in the air, I'm gonna release right. See how I land on his head like that? And I released right before I landed on his head. So I released the D-pad before I landed on his head. Let me just show you one more time. Just like that. So that's really easy to do slowed down. Not so easy to do 100%. So another big mistake that I see is not releasing the D-pad when you land on his head. So like this. See how I just fell right off there? Because I didn't let go of the D-pad. If you land on his head and you're still holding the D-pad, you're going to walk right off him and fall down. So it's absolutely important that you release the D-pad before you land on the Shy Guy's head. But it's also important not to release the D-pad too soon. If you just do it like... If you only move over like 1 frame or so, then that can happen. That was kind of weird to watch, so let me just try that again. So like if you only move over like 2 frames, then it's going to push you right off his head again. Because the platform of the Shy Guy's head is a lot of pixels that can make you trigger the cutscene if you land on it at the wrong point, but if you land on it at the right point, you just stand on him. But if you land on his head on a part where you're not supposed to land, like a part where they've intended for you to trigger the cutscene, then what'll happen is it'll force you to jump off his head. So you notice the... Watch my jump button. I'm gonna just demonstrate one more time. Watch my jump button. Notice how it makes me bounce off his head? It makes a jump sound, but I didn't press the jump button. That is me losing control of Mario because the game is forcing me to start the Mack cutscene. That's a reset right there. So it's important to release the D-pad before you land on the Shy Guy's head, but it's also important not to release the D-pad too soon. And I'll explain exactly how this works, because when you jump, see, I'm holding right, but I can't move any further than right here. So I'm landing on him. See, even in the air, I'm holding right, but I'm not going right. That's because there's an invisible wall right there that I cannot move past if I'm pressing cardinal right on the D-pad. So when you're jumping off the ground on top of the Shy Guy's head, you're gonna collide with that wall, and as soon as you collide with that wall, that's when you let go of the D-pad to just land on top of him, because you're okay if you land right there. But if you've, of course, released it too early, then it's bad news. If you're holding Y, generally you won't have that problem. So make sure, if you're holding Y, like, you can release the D-pad super early and be really safe. So like, you jump on top of him as you're holding Y makes it so much easier. And you will hardly ever get that extra jump if you're holding Y when you're jumping on him, just as long as you're releasing the D-pad before you land on him and you're not being too shy about your horizontal distance. So like, you just want to jumps straight to the right. Another thing that can go wrong that's a little hard to show is, I'm gonna see if I can get one. It's called a dead frame. That's not a dead frame. Let me try this. Okay, you see how I'm falling right through the Shy Guy, like that? Even though I held right and hit the invisible wall, I held Y, did everything else right, but I'm actually falling through the Shy Guy, and then that forces me to go into the center. If you hit a dead frame, that will happen, and there is nothing you can do about it. And there's, on smrpgspeedruns.com, there is a GIF that shows where all the dead frames are, and I'll just show that briefly. It's here. So in 30 cycle bounce animation, there are 5 or 6 dead frames, and they're all like near the top. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 dead frames out of about 30 or so. So you have like a 1 in 6 chance of hitting a dead frame if you don't know where they are. But if you look at this animation, they're all kind of when he's around the peak of his bounce. So if you initiate your jump during any of those frames with that big white X is there, you're going to hit a dead frame. And it's kind of hard because all those frames are kind of scattered. So it's not like there's a 5 frame window where you know not to jump. It's just there's just 5 random frames scattered around the top of his jump. That's like there's nothing you can really do about him. It's kind of a crapshoot. So that's dead frames. I don't see new runners get dead frames very often, but they are important to be aware of in case like you start using visual cues for the top of his jump, which is like really ballsy to do, but some people like to do it. So that means that initiating your jump when the Shyster is at the peak of his jump is not perfectly safe because all the dead frames are around there. So logically it would make sense to say initiate your jump when you're furthest away from where any dead frames are, which would be when he's at the peak of his jump. So I'm gonna load up my save again and just do some frame advance. So that would be like when he's here, right at the base. Let me just show SNES 9X. Whoops, that's my X capture. SNES 9X. So right there, see how the Shy Guy's on the ground? Some people like to initiate their jump here, which is totally fine. It's alright to do that. So I'm going to hold B and Y and right, and I'm going to advance through the frames. But you'll see one thing that's kind of difficult about doing this is that you're jumping at the same time, so the peak of your jump kind of coincides with the peak of his jump. And you see, right now, there's a very, very small distance between Mario's feet and the Shy Guy's head, which means, like, frame advance 6% speed, this is totally fine because I can just release the D-pad right now. But in real time, you're going to land on him, like, there's a 3 frame window to land on him after you hit that invisible wall or so, like 3 frames or so, which is very, very small. And as I showed you earlier, you have to release the D-pad after you hit the invisible wall, but before you land on the Shy Guy's head. So if you're jumping close to the base of his jump, that's not a very big window. As opposed to if you're jumping at like... See, look at how big this frame window is to release before you land on him. It's like gigantic. So you just land on him like that. But that's risky because that's jumping at the apex of his jump. It's a bigger frame window to allow you to release the D-pad. It gives you a little more leeway, but you also have a bigger chance of it just screwing up and you not being able to do anything about it. So jumping when he's at the base of his jump is kind of risky. Jumping when he's at the peak of his jump is kind of risky. So I like to jump when he's at... Where is it? I like to jump right around here. This is where I normally do my jump for Mack Skip. So I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, like 4 or 5 frame window to land instead of just 3. Like it's not perfect. Like it's not like much better than anything else in the Mack Skip. It's just that's the cue that works for me. But it's also very hard to use that visual cue because it's happening like as he's moving, as opposed to like peak of his jump. Peak of his jump lasts for like 10 frames or something. Base of his jump is really obvious to see because you're looking right around here, and as soon as you see him land, you press the B button. But As for me, I just like to jump when he's a little bit past his dead frames. So like, it's like around here. There's the invisible wall, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like that's a big frame window to land on him. It's not that bad. So that's when I like to jump. It's kind of different for everyone. Like, a lot of people actually do like to jump when he's at his base because they have very good reaction time. So like, whoops. It's like when he's at his base right there, you jump. I think I said it was 3 frames, but I might have been off, so I'm just going to test it again. So there's invisible wall, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's like a 5-frame window if you're jumping when he's at the very bottom. So there's still like when I say 5-frame window, I mean that's how many frames you have to release the D-pad after hitting the invisible wall before you land on the Shy Guy's head, because it's all dependent on what part of the bounce he's at. So whenever you like to do it, you'll find a visual cue that works for you. Jumping when he's at the top is risky because of dead frames. Jumping when he's at the bottom is risky because it's a small frame window to release the D-pad and you gotta be quick. Jumping when he's mid-fall or mid-jump is hard because that's not a very distinct visual cue as it's happening so quickly. So Mack Skip jump number 2 is really pick your poison. You're gonna find something that works. Just experiment it with a bit and see when you like to jump. You'll figure it out as you do it more and more. Another major thing that I see going wrong during Mack Skip is people are trying to jump up and right, but they start pressing other directions on the D-pad for some reason, like that. You see? Well, let me show that to you again. I see a lot of new players do this. Load game, slot number 2. I'm gonna slow that down again. It's like 6%. See how I'm jumping and holding up and right? Some people, like, for whatever reason, will just, like, turn in the middle of Mack Skip. Like that. And that will definitely make you fail, because you're not even, like, landing where you should be landing. I also see people do that during the first jump, like, running along and then, whoa, all of a sudden I'm going up. I don't know why. If you're wiggling too much on the D-pad, you're gonna fail Mack Skip. It's like, it is just, Mack Skip for the first 2 jumps is just a straight line right on the D-pad. So you're holding cardinal right in your first jump, and cardinal right in your second jump. No up, no down, no other directions, just right for both of those jumps, and you have to be really careful on your D-pad not to accidentally press any other direction, because it will screw you up and get you in the wrong position. So now that I'm up here, I'll talk about the third jump a little bit. Third jump is probably the easiest one of the entire technique to do. The first 2 are the easiest to mess up. Third one's kind of hard to mess up because there's there's 2 cues you can use. You're gonna jump when he's at the peak of his jump, but you don't want, this is where you land after your second jump. You don't want to initiate your third jump here because there's an invisible wall behind the Shy Guy, like around here, that you can't jump over if you're this close. If you do it, I'm just gonna like do that. See, I was like trying to hold up and right and it wasn't letting me do anything. Okay, so number 2, speed 100%. 100%, there we go. See, that was an invisible wall. I tried to jump up and right, couldn't go anywhere because I hit an invisible wall because I was too close to, I didn't reach the peak of my jump soon enough. I just hit a wall and I fell down. So, what you're actually gonna do is, I'm gonna make a safe state here. When you get on top of the Shy Guy's head, the Shy Guy's head is shaped like a horizontal platform going along the y-axis like that. Sorry, not horizontal, diagonal platform going from down left to up right. It's shaped like this. Follow my mouse. That's the kind of shape it is, like / kind of. So, I see people press down too much and fall right off like that. I see them press left too much and fall off and have to start again. So what you really want to do is just kind of inch your way down, a little bit left, a little bit down, a little bit left, and then you can jump like that. So let me show you what that is actually supposed to be. You want to inch yourself a little bit down and left, just like that. Get on the bottom left corner of his head. Then you want to wait until he's right at the peak of his jump. When he's right at the peak, that's when you're going to initiate your jump. So let me just slow it down so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. 25%. So I'm going to wait till he's at the peak. Right now. When you jump, you're at your highest possible elevation, which will put you over that invisible wall. But, of course, if you are too close to the invisible wall, it's not going to work. So, how do you know when you're far down enough? That's really up to you. If you want to be quick, you can just inch yourself down like a little bit, and you're probably still going to be okay, like that. What I like to do sometimes to be like super duper safe, I'm in like a marathon or something, I walk down and left a lot. And I look at Mario and the Shy Guy shadows on the ground. Right here. Right here. And you see how my shadow's here, and his shadow is there, and they're kind of forming like a sideways 8 turned like 30 degrees or something on the ground. If I see these two shadows form like that little angular sideways 8, I know I'm definitely good enough to just jump off his head like that. Other things that can go wrong during jump number 3. Once again, too much wiggling on the D-pad. Be very, very careful you're not doing this, because it's something that I see is really popular with newer runners, to drop a lot of Mack Skips to just input in the wrong directions. It's like, you want to jump up and right, but instead you just jump up. And I don't know why that happens. I guess it's just like not being used to the D-pad or something, but get used to your D-pad, because you want to jump in a straight upright line with absolutely no deviation. Just straight upright like that. You can't really afford to be like, jump up a little bit, oh no, I messed up, I gotta turn upright. No, it's not gonna work. It's, you gotta just do it straight upright right away. Or you can't be like, right, and then upright. Okay, I guess that one you can do sometimes. But if you hit up first and then try to switch upright, it's not gonna work. See? It doesn't work. So be very, very careful with your D-pad. Make that your sticking point. Be careful with your D-pad. First 2 jumps is just a straight right input. Third jump is up and right. No deviation, just do those exact directions. You don't need to change direction at any point during the individual 3 jumps. So first jump is right, second jump is right, third jump is upright. There are no directional changes during any of those jumps. So actually, I think that's about it. Those are all the biggest issues I see with Mack Skip, and they can be caused by like a variety of things. So sticking points are jump number 1. Jump when your walk is horizontal. Don't jump too early, otherwise you're going to trigger a cutscene. Don't jump too late, otherwise you're also going to trigger a cutscene. Jump number 2. Jump number 2, find a visual cue that's good for you, avoid the dead frames at the peak of his jump, and whatever you do, release the D-pad before you land on his head, but don't release it too soon. And then, third jump. Make sure you're at the peak of his jump and also move down a little bit and left a little bit if you want. Sticking point for all 3 of the jumps. Keep a straight direction, no wiggling on the D-pad. If you just, so I've shown you all some of the things that can kind of go wrong during Mack Skip and what causes them. So if you see yourself drop a Mack Skip and it looks like Mario bounced off the dude's head, that means you probably mispositioned yourself or didn't hold right long enough in the air. You see him land but then just walk off the dude's head, you were holding the D-pad for too long. You fall right through him, that just means you got super unlucky with a dead frame. If you walk into the cutscene before you even get to do your second jump, you did your first jump wrong, and if you fall right off the dude's head or you hit an invisible wall during your third jump, that means you weren't far enough down on his head, you didn't press the D-pad properly, or you weren't at the peak of his jump. That's the takeaway from this video. Good luck with Mack Skip. Now that you know how to troubleshoot it, it's gonna be easy sailing from here. Good luck running SMRPG.